Welcome to Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Steve Wiss and James Eastham. Steve, a very good day to you. A return of the Bundesliga for the first time in a good few weeks now. First time, obviously, in 2026. Looking forward to get stuck into some German action.
Well, hello, everyone. Hello, Dan. Hello, James. I am excited, to be honest with you. The Bundesliga's probably been my best league for the last couple of seasons, actually. Quite why it's worked out that way, I don't know. But I am really, really pleased it's back. I've got a lot of units on the table this week. I'm going really hard, going in hard, and hopefully I'll get rewarded for it. But risky as well at the same time, but kind of exciting.
Yeah, plenty of units on the table from Steve. James, a week off for Liga action. What's the story there?
Yeah, no League One games this weekend because it's the French Cup. So we're not covering it because they're not playing. We also had the French Champions Trophy in midweek in Kuwait between PSG and Marseille, which PSG won on penalties. So the schedule's slightly mixed up at the moment in League One. One thing I would say is that the fact that we don't have a round of matches this weekend means that we're almost at the end of the very short period now where the AFCON has affected League One, because by the time it returns next weekend, nearly all the players will be back from that tournament. We've obviously got the final of that competition taking place next weekend, so there'll be one or two players perhaps missing from League One action. But just something to take into account if you're somebody that looks ahead, maybe a week or 10 days with fixtures, because by the time League One returns, that competition will be almost over.
Plenty to discuss over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. Get your comments in via YouTube. Get your picks in as well when it comes to the soccer in Germany, in Italy and in Spain. And we are going to cover the Supercopa as well right at the end of the show, the final between Barcelona and Real Madrid. We know it's not a league game, but it is one of the big games of the weekend, of course, out in Jeddah. But we are going to kick off with the Bundesliga and Steve, who's got quite a few units being shoved into the middle here. We're going to spin the wheel on a counterintuitive play, maybe, but we shall see. 3 games to look at, Steve, with your good self here. James, you can sit back and enjoy Steve's analysis of 3 fixtures that are coming up. All 9:30 Eastern on Saturday, incidentally. So nice if you're looking at parlays and that sort of thing. And there is a real theme, Steve, running through your picks here. We're going to start with Union Berlin against Mainz. The Berlin side a little bit bigger than even money at plus 110. Mainz at plus 260 and the tie at plus 225. It is cold in Germany, and that is a little bit of the basis on how you're going to play this one, Steve.
Well, yes. I'm going absolutely under mad in the Bundesliga this week, and the main crux of it is the weather. We've got to discuss it because this is going to be seriously cold. It's going to be seriously snowy. I saw a satellite image the other day. I think 95% of Germany is currently snowbound, basically, or snow on the ground. It's very, very cold. Only one match of the whole round this week, and it's Friday's game in Frankfurt, is going to be played at a temperature above freezing in Celsius. So that just shows it all, really. I mean, some of these places, the Berlin, for example, is going to be minus 8 degrees Celsius, but it's going to feel like minus 15. I mean, we're in Fahrenheit territory here. We're in the 20s. We're even in the teens, perhaps, in terms of actual how it feels. Now, I don't know about you guys, but it's been pretty cold in the UK recently. I've been outside, and I wouldn't want to be doing any sort of sport in these sort of conditions. It's going to be even colder. And, I remember I've had some discussions on the live show with folk before about how there's actually a biological mechanism how the human body struggles in lower conditions of temperature. So I'm looking at unders. Do you know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to have a big under parlay in 6 of the 9 games this week. I'll tell you about which 6 I'm doing at the end. But let's start with my most confident bet. This is in Berlin, Union Berlin Mainz. Now, there's a risk that some of these games might get postponed, by the way, so it wouldn't shock me. I mean, Berlin, this is the return of Urs Fischer, the legend. And he's not going to want to come here and lose. Had a great spell at Union Berlin. And this Mainz side, he's just recently took charge of them. And, they ground out that 2-2 draw against Bayern Munich away, showed a lot more guts than a 0-0 draw against St. Pauli at home. And I think this is the way Fischer's going to keep them up. Defence, grind. So immediately under 2.25 goals sticks out. This is just going to be...
That's a low line for Germany. That sounds like a very low line. Steve.
Yeah, minus 106 here for 1.5 units. But I'm also going to add in a quarter of a unit on the 0-0 draw. Under 0.5 goals at plus 850. Just because I just got a feeling I'll regret it. This has got 0-0 written all over it. Really cold conditions. I just don't see much action. A really negative defensive away manager against his former club who's not going to want to lose. And Union Berlin, they're no kind of strangers historically to low-scoring games. So, I'm not seeing a particularly... I think it'll be an interesting watch, tactically perhaps, but hopefully devoid of goalmouth action. I think the players are going to be absolutely so cold. The fans have been using the snow shovels already to get public access in place. Hopefully the game will go ahead. And this is my most confident under of the weekend.
Yeah, sometimes with games being on, it's not necessarily the pitch. It is concourses and so on for the fans that go to the games. And if it's dangerous around the stadia, then games can be called off, even if the pitch is playable. But yeah, fingers crossed that all these games are going to be on. So that is 1.5U on under 2.25 goals, and just a quarter of a unit on the 0-0 draw. Play that how you see it, depending where you're placing your bets. Mainz, I think we've had a look at unders with Mainz sort of regularly over the last few years. They are an underside, as are Leipzig, which is the next game we're going to talk about. They're away at St. Pauli here. They are the minus money favourites here. Another 9:30 Saturday game. But what's the underline we're going here?
Well, I'm going in 1.5 units again here, this time under 2.75 goals, which is a really nice sort of backup, half loss if there's 3 goals exactly scored. But truth be told, I don't see St. Pauli hitting the back of the net in this one. Even if this was just a normal match in normal conditions, by the way, I'll be looking at the under. Because, St. Pauli is such a limited side, the lowest XG in the Bundesliga by a long way. They offer no threat whatsoever. And we know how they're going to try and get points in these types of games. They're going to park the bus. They're going to be negative. And it's up to RB Leipzig to break them down. They didn't do it last season. It was a 0-0 draw. They're also missing, for me, that the most exciting player they've got is in the African Cup of Nations, Diamande, for the Ivory Coast. He looks really good prospect. So that's a huge blow for RB Leipzig. They're known as being quite slow coming out of winter breaks or international breaks for whatever reason. And again, I think this has got a 0-0 potentially written all over it. Really cold conditions once more, which will add to this. I think they'll lack rhythm. We've got one. If we're going to get the goals here, the onus is completely on RB Leipzig to get them all. So with that in mind, they might just nick a 1-0 win or something. But to get a 2.75 goal line under just makes a lot of sense. My second most confident under of the round. So it's got to be another 1.5 units on this under goal line.
1.5 units on under 2.75 goals in the St. Pauli Leipzig game. Leipzig are a profitable under 2.5 goal side, but they're also a profitable over 3.5. Make that one make sense. Yeah, it's one of those oddities that sometimes you get with P&L when you're looking at trends. And finally, for official plays, at least in the Bundesliga, when it comes to this unders run, we're going to go Heidenheim against Koln, another game that's 9:30 a.m. Saturday Eastern, where Heidenheim are plus 195. Koln are the favourites here. This is an overs team versus an unders team. Talk us through this one, Steve.
Well, I think FC Koln, the back end of last year, 2025, just kind of went into their shell too much. I watched a few of their games and it wasn't really pretty. They only scored 2 goals in their last 4 fixtures, and this can happen to promoted teams where they just hit a bit of a brick wall. And there's a lot. I think ultimately there's 2 poor teams playing against each other here. Heidenheim or St. Pauli, the worst 2 sides in the Bundesliga. Take your pick, really. Heidenheim have got this fighting quality, haven't they? But ultimately they just lack firepower. Really low the number of goals scored. Also in the metrics it adds up as well. And the weather plays a huge part here. The risk of this match actually getting called off because of snow on the day. So we could get a snowbound pitch. Now, snow doesn't always mean unders. I've seen some crazy games actually involving snow where you can get a lot of goals. But I just think considering the limitations of both sides at the minute, it makes sense again to look at this under goal line, 2.75. It's too high on a weekend like this. The first round back after, I think a lot of teams will lack rhythm anyway. Then you've put the factor of the weather, and then you put the factor in the quality of the two offenses in. It's just a bank, use the word banker, but this is only a 1-unit play because bad things happen to me with Heidenheim. But I can't help myself getting involved here. It's a really high goal line again, 2.75. We go under at -112. And do you know what? As I said, I'm having a unit, personally, an extra unit on all the other games to go under the goal line, apart from Bayer Leverkusen Stuttgart, because
okay.
I think that one, there's a lot of absences still with teams, and I'm not going to risk Bayern. Although the temperature in Bayern on the Sunday is going to be the lowest, I think, of all of them. So even Bayern might get...
The goal line's 4.5, Steve. The goal line's 4.5, Bayern Wolfsburg.
I think that's worth going... The 6 that I'm really confident about going under... I'm going to have a 6-leg under 3.5 goal parlay. I'm going to do the 3 that I'm on the official units, plus Freiburg-Hamburg, I think, is an under.
Yeah.
There's going to be potentially a lot of snow there. Werder Bremen-Hoffenheim, I'm going under as well, even though both teams kind of play overish. And then Gladbach-Augsburg on the Sunday as well. I'm going to add to the under 3.5. I think he gets about 5 or 6 to 1 on that, but I wouldn't be looking at any overs this round in Germany, apart from possibly Friday night. So watch out for some really turgid soccer and low scoring. Hopefully I can cash with these unders. There's a midweek round as well, so if the weather stays cold, let's just keep cashing them.
Fingers crossed, we're booking the trend to a certain extent, but obviously conditions have to be taken into consideration, as Steve has outlined there. I mean, the averages of the Bundesliga this season, what we're looking at, 3.15 per game. We're looking generally at under 2.75 with one under 2.25 line as well, but conditions could make free-flowing football difficult. Let's hope so. Now, if you've got your eyes on a plus money bet at BetRivers, Betting Weekly is giving you a little pizza money to lock it in. Use our pizza money bonus code, which is Betting Weekly 1218, to get a $10 bonus bet to use on any plus money bets at BetRivers. Betting Weekly 1218 is the code. You have until January the 11th. So this is the last weekend for you to redeem the code at any US BetRivers sportsbook. Good for one bet for eligible players only. Let's get to Serie A and a couple of picks from James coming your way. We're going to go 12:30 Monday first up. Both of the picks Monday night fixtures. Obviously, Serie A has just had a midweek round and some of the games were on Thursday, so we've got games spread out over the course of the weekend into Monday. And Genoa Cagliari is the first game we look at, James, here. Genoa, our favourites, plus 112, Cagliari plus 295. We've talked extensively about overs with Genoa. And look, for those that sort of got on this train, James, right at the start, and they just did it blindly since we mentioned it, they're almost certainly up. We've sort of danced in and out of official plays with this. Sometimes we got it right, sometimes we got it wrong. So how are we tackling the overs line here for your official play?
Yeah, I'm going back in on overs here, Dan, on a Genoa game. I'm putting 1 unit on over 2 goals, which is available at -103, which is, yes, it's minus money, but it's a bigger price than I was expecting, because the journey we've been on with Genoa, as people may recall, is that when Daniele De Rossi took over back in November, he was taking over a side that had been quite defensive and had been involved in lots of low-scoring matches under their former manager, Patrick Vieira. We had an immediate change of style, and Genoa started to play more open football with more goals in their games generally, and it took the market 3 or 4 games to respond to that. So we got on it with some leans and we flagged it up, and then I did feel the market did respond. The line on over goals got shorter and shorter, and for me the value went in a couple of the games, but I don't know why, but I think the line here has gone back to giving us some value again, because I think over 2 goals at -103 on a Genoa side that continue to play pretty good attacking football under De Rossi and continue to give up more chances to the opposition than they did under Vieira is really good value. I looked at the weather, as Steve has done in Germany. It's not a factor for me, I don't think, on Monday. And the temperature is going to be something like 46, 47 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 8 degrees Celsius, quite a damp day. In this part of Italy, nothing particularly unusual about that. So I think overs at -103, and bear in mind it's over 2 goals, would be the way to play here. And just to underline the stats on De Rossi, since he did take over, he's played 9 games in Serie A. 8 of those 9 games have had at least 2 goals in them. So you would only have lost out in one of those 9 games. And 6 of those 9 games have had 3 or more goals. So you're looking at having made a profit 6 times, lost once, and got your stakes back twice. So I think the trend on Genoa and goals is pretty clear. And on Cagliari, I think 6 of their 10 away games have been over 2.5 goals in Serie A this season, and 9 out of 19 overall. So this is a side who can also contribute, I think, to quite an attacking game. And the final point I would say on this game is it is a match between 2 teams who are threatened by relegation. I think Genoa have improved since De Rossi took over, but they've not really managed to move away from the relegation zone. And I think the way they'll try to do that under De Rossi here against a direct rival is to be attacking. I don't think they're a team who will try and shut up shop, because they've not been doing that under him so far. So I think everything here points towards overs. And if the line was slightly different, if it was maybe over 2.5 goals at this price, maybe it would have been a lean rather than a full unit. But I think over 2 goals at minus 103 is well worth a look. So it's a full unit play for me on this match on Monday.
Yeah, overs. Bettors were cursing Stanciu's missed penalty for Genoa against Milan in midweek. That one should have gone overs. But with this bet, of course, you would have got your money back. So over 2 is the line. That does look a lot of value at minus 103. I must admit, that's a nice play. In the 12:30 game on Monday, the later game on Monday at 2:45 Eastern is Juventus against Cremonese. Juventus here a minus 420. They are very short. Cremonese are $11 here, plus 1,100. We bet Juve last week, and we were all texting each other about all the stats and the fun. Obviously, Jonathan David missed the penalty as well. I mean, it's incredible we didn't get something out of that game, James. But you're going in again.
I am going in again. Yeah, we were on Juventus, both Steve and I, in different ways last weekend to win against Lecce. They absolutely dominated that game, both in terms of anybody that watched it would have seen just how many chances they created. And like you say, Dan, the stats were so heavily in their favour. It was amazing that it ended in a 1-1 draw. So, yeah, it was a frustrating night for us, but I am going back in on Juventus here. I'm putting 1 unit on Juventus with a minus 1.75 start on the Asian handicap, which is available at minus 103. So you need Juventus to win this by 2 or more goals for this to cash. I understand why some people might want to leave Juventus alone after what happened last weekend. There were some comments under the video from people who I think were as frustrated as we were about how Juventus played last weekend. So I do understand the frustrations about the team, and maybe they are one of these teams who are going to create chances and not always convert them. But I think they can convert them, Dan. We've talked on the show a couple of times recently about the depth they've got in attack, the quality and depth they've got in attack, which is arguably the strongest in Serie A in terms of being able to bring people on and get goals. And it didn't happen last weekend, but I think it will generally happen with Juventus. And we've seen it happen since last weekend, because they won 3-0 in midweek away to Sassuolo. The expected goal stats for Juventus in those last 2 games, I do think, are really telling. It was over 2.5 expected goals for them against both Sassuolo and Lecce last weekend. And significantly, they weren't conceding many chances. Their expected goals against was under 0.3 in both of those games as well. So they are dominating on lots of metrics. And I think at home to Cremonese is a great chance for them to win by a couple of goals. Cremonese generally have struggled for me against the better sides in Serie A this season. If you look through their results against the top teams, there are some defeats there by a couple of goals. I'm not so sure Cremonese see these games as, not that they don't see them as important, but I think they know they're going to live or die in Serie A this season against some of the weaker sides. So I can see them losing this by a couple of goals. And I think Juventus, for all that they did let us down last weekend, something that Steve has mentioned in the last few weeks, they can win games big. And I think almost of all the teams in Serie A, almost including Inter, or maybe alongside Inter, they are the team that can win these type of games by big margins. So I am sticking with Juventus. It's a 1 unit play from me, and it's on Juventus to win with a minus 1.75 start on the Asian handicap.
Yeah, I did mention it at one of the live shows this week. They had 60 touches in the Lecce penalty area, more than any other side in any game in Serie A this season, and more by 10. The next most was 50 for an Inter game earlier this season. Just incredible domination, but not the goals. And Jonathan David missed that penalty. I think the fact that he scored away from home in that Sassuolo game, when he goes back to Turin, because he was getting a lot of stick from the supporters, I'm hoping that they give him a good reception,
Yeah.
gets on the score sheet, and he might start winning them over a little bit because, he's coming for a bit. It's not been an easy move on or off the pitch, what we're told, when it comes to that Juve Cremonese game. And sticking with it, Steve, you've got a little half-view parlay that does include Juventus against Cremonese.
Yeah, I mean, just on the subject of Juventus, I think, I don't think we can really apologise last week because I think it was a genuine bad beat, a serious bad beat, how they didn't at least win the game. They should have won by 2 or 3. And, for those who kind of stuck faithful with them, and they would have been rewarded against Sassuolo. I did back them. I didn't go beyond minus 0.75 in midweek, which annoyed me. But I still did back them. And I still think they're a train to be riding on. I think they're going to finish second, they're actually 20-1 with Bet Rivers. And you can get 2 places at a third of the odds. So that's effectively, 7-1 nearly for them to finish second. I mean, I don't think I'm allowed official units on futures, am I? But I think that's worth a go. Inter will win the league for me. The rest of the chasing pack are not shown enough for me. Juventus have got the firepower. But yeah, my parlay, I've got a double parlay here on 2 matches to finish in over 2.5 goals. Juventus Cremonese is the first one. I mean, I've not really got much more to add. What James has said, Juventus can cover this goal line all by themselves. They've got so much firepower. Home to a newly promoted team. I'm a little bit concerned they might concede a sloppy goal, though. I mean, the way that teams defend Jamie Vardy in these 2 strikers system that Cremonese have, a little bit similar to what Leeds have been doing in the Premier League, that I could just see a daft sloppy moment like where Cremonese have, 4 or 5 shots in the game, but they somehow score with one of them. So that's why I like the over 2.5. I mean, I was going to have like a 1 unit play on over 2.75 here, but I've decided to condense it into a double because I'm going to include Fiorentina AC Milan over 2.5 goals as well. I felt unlucky once more with Fiorentina last week. They eventually won 1-0. If they'd scored earlier, I think the match would have really opened up. Again, there was about 20-odd shots from them. AC Milan started the 2026 with a couple of clean sheets, but they were back to their kind of mistake best against Genoa, weren't they? They conceded a sloppy goal. They should have conceded a late penalty. And this is what they do. They have switch-off moments. And I think Fiorentina actually will be more confident now. They've won last week. They've drawn at Lazio. They should have won there, actually. They're scoring goals. They sucked Lazio into an over. That takes some doing.
Yeah.
So
they're just about to mention that. I mean, that is key.
Yeah, they're not even going to suck AC Milan into it because AC Milan will want to go hard. So I would quite happily have, single units on these games for overs, but I've gone with a double, half a unit double at plus 220 for Fiorentina AC Milan and Juventus Cremonese over 2.5 goals. Both of these matches, I think we get to affairs which are pretty entertaining watch and full of goals now.
Yeah, the interesting thing with that Fiorentina Lazio game, I think it was 13 under 2.5 on the spin for Lazio in all competitions. And Fiorentina are now, I think, finding a way. They should have had a few more overs, and we've been on when they haven't, and we've been on when they have. But I think we might see a glut of Fiorentina overs started in midweek, but hopefully continuing with this game as well. That's a half-view parlay from Steve. We've got some more leans in Italy that James is going to rattle through before we get to Spain. We've got some official plays in Spain from Steve. But let's talk leans. A couple of games that didn't quite make the cut here. James, first of all, Lecce against Parma, where you're siding-ish with the away team.
Yes, siding with Parma here with a lean, Dan. Tyno Bet Market, where Parma are available at minus 103. They are the underdogs here. Not by much, but they are the underdogs. Lecce are plus 165 to win it, and Parma are plus 205 to win it. I think that's probably a bit too big on Parma from what I've seen of them. I sided with them in a fairly similar game last weekend when they were away to Sassuolo. At that time, I backed them plus 0.5 on the Asian handicap, which won for us because Parma drew the game 1-1. If you dig into Parma's stats, the one thing they're doing fairly well this season is avoiding defeat away from home in this type of game. They've had 6 matches away from home against sides that are currently in the bottom half of the table, as Lecce are, and they've avoided defeat in 5 of them. So, they are struggling a little bit in terms of league position. They're down near the bottom, but they are managing to avoid defeat against some of their their peers in that part of the table. And Lecce at home have only won 2 out of 10 this season. So you may want to look at the draw. Wouldn't surprise me at all if this ended in the tie. And that's obviously going to be a bigger price for you. You can get the tie at the moment at plus 180. So that's an option as well. But it's just a lean from me on Parma. I wanted a little bit of a bigger price on them to turn it into a 1-unit play. But I think Parma tie no bet is where the value lies. So get with Parma somehow would be my advice on this one.
And Verona Lazio, which is midday Sunday. That Lecce Parma game is certainly 6:30 Sunday, so early Eastern, midday Sunday for Verona against Lazio here. And again, we're looking at a goals line, James, for this one, just a lean.
Yeah, just a lean. It's on over 2 goals at minus 117. It's one of those games where you've got two teams with very different goal stats. So it's not a purely stats-based pick or lean, because I don't think you could justify it purely on the stats. But you could on Verona's, because Verona have been involved in some high-scoring matches this season. 11 of their 18 Serie A games have gone overs, including 5 of 8 at home. So this is a Verona side who are scoring and conceding goals. Lazio are the opposite. We know that. They've been a big under 2.5 goals team this season. I think that's been reflected as well in how they've played for a lot of the season. They're not creating a great deal. But I think Lazio have to be more positive here, because they've dropped points recently. And they're starting, I think, to come under a bit of pressure to perform better. You know, they've fallen away from the top of the table, and they're very much a mid-table side now. They've just drawn 2-2 in midweek at home to Fiorentina, and they lost 2-0 at home to Napoli last weekend when they had 2 players sent off. I think if you're Lazio and you're going away to one of the weakest sides in the division, you have to be positive here. It's a must-win game for them in terms of how they played recently. So I think it's going to be maybe a little bit more adventurous and a little bit more dynamic, and maybe a few more risks from Lazio than they've normally taken this season. And Verona, as I've said, they have been involved in some high-scoring games. So it's just a lean, but I think your chances of 2 or more goals in the game are pretty good. So it's a lean on over 2 goals at minus 117.
Yeah, I think in Italy, that over 2 goals line is such a smart play if you like overs. There's a little bit of regression upwards, I think, in Italy to come over the next few weeks.
Yes,
that's sort of my feeling with some of the expected goals numbers, and just generally,
one team, Dan,
I think we should be seeing a few more
overperformed
goals.
its expected goals. That cannot continue.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the live show.
Incredible.
Yeah,
stat.
exactly.
I mean, regarding Lazio, did you see the story developing yesterday where they've signed a striker and Maurizio Sarri doesn't even know who he is? The guy from Salzburg. It kind of sums
so it's not George Ware's cousin, is it?
Sums up soccer today, doesn't it? Where the manager doesn't seem to have any impact on transfers sometimes. They're just letting those above them do the job. So
really.
he's got to fit in a striker of a profile that he didn't want. So let's see how that works out.
Interesting game of that, I think, Verona Lazio. And just briefly, James, just to wrap up Serie A, obviously the big game is Inter against Napoli. It's interesting to talk about. Steve's mentioning Juventus could be good for second. Napoli are in this bit of a funk at the minute. They're not certain to qualify for the playoffs, let alone anything else in the Champions League. They're just inside the top 24. That could be a factor for them if they don't make it. They've still got Copenhagen and Chelsea to come. But just give us your thoughts on Inter Napoli. I think there's a couple of player props that may well have caught your eye.
Yeah, I had a long look at this game, Dan, because it's obviously a fantastic match at the top of the table. We've got Inter in first place and Napoli in third place. Yeah, Napoli will still think they are title contenders this season, and I understand that, because the points gaps at the top of Serie A have been pretty tight all season. But Inter at minus money for me is very difficult to argue with. They're minus 139 to win this game, and I think that's completely justified. As I say, they've not managed to pull away yet at the top of the table, but I do think it's worth underlining just how solid Inter's form has been now, going back many weeks. They've won 9 of their last 10 games now in Serie A. The only defeat was against AC Milan, and their goal difference across those last 10 matches is plus 17. So this is a side that's racking up an average of fairly close to plus 2 goals a game positive goal difference. They are quite dominant, while not having been able to open up the sort of points total you sometimes see in Germany with Bayern Munich, or in France with Paris Saint-Germain. But I do think they are the strongest side, and I think some people may look at it and think, well, hang on a minute, should they really be minus money at home to one of their closest rivals? I personally think they should. So, I looked at the main money line and Asian handicap markets. I don't see a lot of value there. But in the player props markets, if you think Napoli can make a game of it or give Inter a scare or get on the score sheet, I think the two players to look at the moment are really their big two, which is for me, Højlund and McTominay. They have both delivered recently in different ways and in different games, but they are the go-to players at the moment for me in a team that obviously is still lacking Kevin De Bruyne and Anguissa in midfield as well. Højlund is minus 115 in the over 0.5 shot on target market. McTominay is minus 106 in the same market. I would have a look at both of those because they will be, as I say, the go-to players in the final third. Højlund is plus 330 to score, and McTominay, who scored in midweek for them, is plus 390 to score. Now, they're obviously facing a good team here, and they are obviously away from home, so those two guys may not get as many chances in this match as they do in any of the others. But if you are looking at Napoli to do anything in the game, right now, for me, those are the two players to focus your attention on for sure.
Yeah, McTominay's a big game player in Italy. 2 goals in 3 appearances against Inter, including in the reverse fixture this season and in the corresponding fixture last term. Could be a couple of smart leans, or at least thoughts on player props there from James. Let's talk Spain. We'll get to the Super Copa final shortly, but we've got some official plays from Steve in the rank and file of La Liga fixtures. And first of all, Steve, we're back on the corners train here. It's Rayo against Mallorca. This is 8 a.m. Sunday. Rayo are minus money favourites for this game, but we move away from the money line, and it's the flag kicks that you've got to fancy.
Well, I banged on about laddering corners before so often. Now I'm finally going to put my money where my mouth is with the dynamic unit system that we've got going here. I am going to have 2 corner bets on the game. The first one is a single unit on over 9.5 corners, minus 108. And then we're going to go 3 rungs higher up on the ladder for a half a unit play on over 12.5 corners at plus 325. And this was the same hot dog I had last year to finish the season with. This was the pick that got me in profit last season. So got great memories of this fixture. And I don't think a lot's changed between the two teams.
Nostalgic about corner bets. I love it.
Well, you've got a Rayo team who have been corner mad for the last 2 years, really. A Mallorca team who concede a lot of corners. Rayo are probably going to win this corner count something like 9-4, hopefully, something like that. But one thing that did change the dynamics last week, there was only 5 corners in the Rayo Getafe. Only 1 in the entire second half. What actually happened was Rayo got ahead in a game, which doesn't happen too often. They miss so many opportunities. So there's maybe a slight risk of that happening again here. But actually, Mallorca, I've watched them a fair bit. They can be quite a big corner team when they're chasing a game. So I'm quite happy to have both teams contributing towards this line for me. There's not really much else I need to say. For those who've been following the show for a long time, know Rayo style. They know that Mallorca sit deep and soak up a lot of pressure. It was 0-0 last season. Wouldn't surprise me again if it was. With probably Rayo missing a glutton of chances and having a lot of shots, and that's the way they seem to roll. There's a lot of pressure on them, by the way. They're not won in a while, I don't think. Or they've really lacked wins all season. They're hovering not too far off the relegation zone. So, it's the sort of team that are finding ways not to score goals, and I think that really helps in the corner market. I think this could go well over the line. It wouldn't surprise me if there's 15 or 16 corners potentially down with a bit of luck. 1 unit. If we get 10 corners in the game, we're making a profit on the game. But we're going to have that other half unit on over 12.5. So hopefully it goes crazy wild over with the corners here.
We're laddering up for corners. Rayo Mallorca, 8 a.m. Sunday. 3 p.m. Monday, Sevilla against Celta Vigo. I was surprised but not surprised with this play. Sevilla are favourites plus 145, Celta Vigo plus 175. And just a cursory glance at recent form would make you think, Steve, why are Sevilla favourites? They've lost their last 3 without scoring, but I thought they were unlucky last time out. But Celta Vigo have been sneaky good this season. What's the one you going here?
Well, that was the one real regret I had last week. Celta Vigo, they should have been an official play from me, no doubt about it. Especially when I ended up talking with Rui Barlow on the show live show on Friday, we both made it our best bet in Spain, and they go and win 4-1. They had a little bit of luck last week. A penalty was missed against them early doors, but even if that had been scored, I think you're fair to say they still would have won the game. So I've got to go with Celta Vigo here. Draw no bet, -107, 1.5 units. Really confident about this one. Sevilla, for me, have issues with player selection. They're missing a lot of players to injury. AFCON, you've got Akor Adams and Najuke who are with Nigeria.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be back here for this one, are they? I suppose there's a chance that they could be back in the country, but I'd be surprised if they feature. Look, I know, 3-0 was probably harsh against Levante. But if we look at the expected goal numbers, non-penalty expected goals, Sevilla missed a late penalty. Levante actually outdid them. And if you're losing 3-0 at home to Levante, I don't care how unlucky you are, that is a major alarm bell. I can't tell you how poor Levante and Oviedo are in this league. If you're not beating them at home, you got a problem. So I'm a bit worried about Sevilla at this moment. I think they need their players back. And Celta have really found some form. This is a side that's in the Europa League, remember. They're now in the top 7. They started the season so slow with so many draws. Now they're winning games.
Draws.
Away from home, they've been good. They've hardly lost an away game all season. So this just... I don't see them kicking off -107, draw no bet on Monday night. I think they'll be a clear favourite. I think they'll be a -0.25 goal favourite, possibly around about even +115, +120. So right now, this is probably my strongest single bet of the week in Spain. Actually, Celta Vigo, tie no bet at Sevilla. Really good spot to take Sevilla, to oppose Sevilla and fade them, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, just one defeat away from home in La Liga this season. That's fewer than Barcelona, incidentally. And that defeat came at Elche, of all places, which just leads us on nicely to your lean in La Liga, Steve, because Elche are away at Valencia for the main game Saturday night in Spain. It's 3 p.m. Eastern. What are we thinking here?
Third straight show where I've got an Elche lean, so... you can guarantee it'll win,
and the other two have won.
Yeah, you can guarantee it'll win. But this is probably going to take some explaining, really, because on the face of it, both of you guys might be thinking, what is he on about here? Because I'm going Elche tie no bet, +138. They haven't won an away game yet this season. So that in itself is, as you know, I'm mostly a logical bettor. That's the way I see things. I have to admit, looking at the data and the stats, this is not a logical bet. Valencia are not beaten at home that often. Elche are not won away from home. The draw's a great chance, actually, of happening, and the +1/4 goal handicap could be maybe a more sensible bet. But I've just got a funny feeling. Sometimes you go against the grain, a random outcome happens, and I think Valencia might be in that sort of ticking time bomb territory again. Every season they have it, don't they? Where there's a sheer panic takes over. They're in the bottom 3. I actually think Carlos Corberan's doing as good a job as he can at the club. He can't control players missing penalties against him, but he's lacking weapons. There is not enough ammunition here at Valencia, and they are seriously reliant on this home form because they're another winless away team. But I think that's adding a lot of pressure to this home record. Elche, I think they're really well coached. They're getting obviously great results at home. They've lost 5 in a row on the road. And some of those have been at disappointing spots like Mallorca, Getafe, Espanyol, Alaves. So it's not like the big team. So that's my concern. That's why it's not an official half unit or unit. But I think I just got a funny feeling Elche win and pile the pressure on Valencia and Corberan. If they get the first goal, the crowd are not going to be happy. I don't see Elche losing anyway. Valencia only won 1 match since the 20th of September in La Liga. So the draw's got a good chance maybe of happening. That's why I'm taking Tino bet +138. I think Elche are the better team. I just think it's simple as that now. Valencia are no great shakes.
He's been tinkering with the formation recently, Carlos Corberan. When he came to the club and they had a massive upswing and they were in danger of relegation, it was 4-4-2 as it was for the start of the season. Over the last, 4 games, just looking at my numbers here, he's had last 5 games, 4 different formations. And he can't quite get it right, and they're on a bit of a poor run at the minute. I think they're vulnerable. Let's talk Spanish Supercopa final, shall we? James, Barcelona, Real Madrid again, as it was last year and the year before that. We switched to a 4-team tournament, if you like, for the last, I don't know, is it 7 or 8 now? But it's always a big game. This is a proper game of soccer. These two teams will be desperate to win. Barcelona plus 105, Real Madrid plus 235. It's in Jeddah, 2 p.m. Sunday. The draw, the tie at plus 260 here. What are your thoughts on the Supercopa?
Well, I think it's great. We've got this as the final for neutral, certainly. I think a Classico between these two teams early in the year is fantastic. Certainly served up plenty of entertainment in recent years as well in the Super Cup final when these two have met. So I'm expecting, like you say, Dan, both teams will obviously take this seriously, and I think it will be a very open and exciting match to watch. I'm surprised at the prices on the money line. I think Barcelona are too short, plus 105 to win the game. Real Madrid, I think they may have come in a little bit, plus 225, but around plus 230, something like that. Too short for me on Barcelona. It's the market's way of saying they've got nearly a 50% chance of winning this game on neutral territory. Are they really that much better than Real Madrid? I can see them being favourites, but I don't think they are as superior to Real Madrid as those prices would suggest. Be really interested to hear what people think in the comments. I know there's a lot of people follow these two teams, of course, extremely closely, and there'll be a range of opinions on it. But when I looked at those prices, I thought that Barcelona, for all they have played well, and for all they did win very well in the semi-final, didn't they, to get to this final? I just feel that plus 105 is overrating their chances of winning in 90 minutes on neutral territory against a very good Real Madrid side. So I have a lean on the game. I don't have a full unit on it because I wasn't supremely confident actually about the impact that playing on neutral territory might have on this match. So it's just a lean, but Real Madrid tie no bet for me at plus 133 would be the way to play it. I think obviously with that you'll get your stakes back if the game ends in a tie, and you'll win if Real Madrid win. One piece of team news we should flag up, as we're recording this on Friday morning our time, there are reports that Kylian Mbappe might be involved in this game. Xabi Alonso has said after the semi-final win that his fitness has improved a bit quicker than they thought, and that he may well be flown out and involved in the match. So, you may want to wait and see on that, but I'd be very interested to see as the weekend progresses whether there's any change in the price on Real Madrid. If Mbappe is involved, because I think the price when the market opened up initially probably would have been based on him not being involved at all. Will he play for 90 minutes? I would say probably not, but as I say, the latest news we have is that he could be involved in some way. So I think Real Madrid is a value play. I quite like in the player market as well Gonzalo Garcia for Real Madrid to score. He's available at plus 280, which I think is a big price if he does start, because he showed with a hat-trick in the league last weekend when Real Madrid won big against Real Betis that he can be a good number 2 striker for Real Madrid. And if Mbappe's on the bench, then Garcia would be the player they look to for goals. So I'm quite strongly on Real Madrid here. I know they've had their problems certainly in the run up to Christmas, and Xabi Alonso's been under pressure, but a one-off game between the two biggest sides in Spain, I just feel that the price overrates how much stronger Barcelona are than Real Madrid. So it's just a lean from me, but Real Madrid tie in a game where there are loads of angles, and there'll be, I think the viewers and the listeners will have maybe different views on this. So as I say, very interested to hear what people think on this match.
4 points between them, first and second at the top of La Liga. Barcelona have won their last 10. I think Real Madrid have won the last 5 or 6 maybe in all competitions. The last 3 Supercopa finals have all gone over 3.5. Steve, this is always a game in isolation when you look at stats. I don't want to overthink it. I think I'm just going to play sort of over 3, which I think is just minus money-ish, around about evens. What are your thoughts on the Barca Real Madrid Supercopa final?
Do you know what? I agree with you, Dan. I think in this instance, let's not overcomplicate it. The over 3 Asian lines now minus 155, by the way. But over 3.5 goals is still plus money. And let's look at the last 4 Super Cups. 3-2 Real Madrid, 3-1 Barcelona, 4-1 Real Madrid, 5-2 Barcelona. Based on that trend, we're due for a Real Madrid win and over 3.5 goals again. So we had some questions on the live show, actually, talking Super Cups on Thursday. And some were asking, do fans, do players actually care about these Super Cups? I think this is definitely the one game they do care. Everyone cares. This is the two biggest clubs in the world, isn't it? Let's be honest. There's never a friendly between these sides. They've got to go for it. And, the way that I think in a Super Cup, there's more, it's more likely that the shackles are off. Both offenses just go punch for punch, bish, bash, bosh, blow for blow. And I think we'll see something similar again. I mean, Barcelona's offense looked brilliant first half against Bilbao, Athletic Club Bilbao. And Real Madrid, a real morale boosting win there against Atletico, I think. So if Mbappe's involved, of course he wants to get involved. It's El Clasico. He wants to be involved, and this is going to be a barnstorming game. I think we'll look back at it and we'll say, the obvious play was the overs. So I will have a nibble, for sure. I'm not going to go official plays. I think I've got enough official plays on the table this show, haven't I? But
just about.
I agree with you, Dan. Totally agree with you there.
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because I always think, you can look at averages and whatever, but the Barcelona Real Madrid games, it's the biggest game where head-to-heads, even if you go back a good few years, seem to count, because there's always goals, there's always cards, there's always drama. Doesn't matter what the competition is. It can be a pre-season friendly in the United States. They still both want to win. It's that type of game. And as James says, get your comments in. Let us know what you're betting. Is it too obvious? Is the value gone when he looks too over? I thought it was around about -110 for over 3, but -150 might even get shorter. We shall see, but a really good game in prospect. Steve, James, thanks for your company. Good luck to one and all. We keep everyone updated, of course, via social media over the course of the weekend. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Extra Time European Edition. Follow us at Because We Win. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be back next week. From all of us for now, though, it is goodbye.